colonel publicly mocks a quiet, unassuming woman he believes to be a low-ranking clerk. What he doesn't know is that she carries a rank far above his. One earned through sacrifice, battlefield scars, and decisions that shape the fate of entire units. As the colonel's disrespect escalates, bystanders fall silent, torn between fear and outrage. But the woman, calm and unreadable, holds a truth powerful enough to reorder the chain of command within a single breath. When her identity is revealed, dignity triumphs. Arrogance collapses, and the room witnesses a lesson in honor they will never forget. Before we step into this powerful tale of dignity and hidden strength, where are you watching from today? And if you enjoy stories that honor courage, respect, and unseen battles, please remember to subscribe before we begin. Colonel kept making fun of her, not knowing she heavily outranked him. The insult came sharply, almost carelessly, slicing through the tension of the crowded hallway like a blade flicked by bored fingers. "Move aside, clerk. Some of us have real work to do." The colonel's voice carried that casual arrogance born from years of unchecked authority. A few soldiers nearby glanced up, startled by the sudden sting in his tone. The young woman he addressed did not flinch. She held still, her posture steady as a stone set deep in the earth. She neither corrected him nor reacted. She simply regarded him with eyes older than her face suggested. Eyes that seemed to hold a long horizon of memories no one else could see. Those who watched felt the wrongness instantly, as if witnessing someone kick a sleeping dog or spit on a memorial. The colonel's voice had been sharp, but it was the dismissive tilt of his head that truly made stomachs tighten. He did not know her name. He did not know her story. He certainly did not know her rank. If he had, he would have swallowed his words like fragments of broken glass. But ignorance makes fools brave, and the colonel, decorated, confident, loudly self-assured, was about to walk blindly into the most humbling moment of his career. She stood in the entrance corridor of Fort Darrington, the late morning light filtering through tall windows and casting pale gold on her uniform. It was immaculate, but quietly so. No glaring badges, no ostentatious medals, nothing that screamed importance. Just a simple subdued rank insignia, partially hidden beneath the fold of her jacket and the shadow of her hair. She carried a folder tucked under one arm. She moved with the unhurried grace of someone who didn't need to prove anything. And she possessed a calm that felt almost out of place in a building full of clipped footsteps and urgency. Her name, though the colonel didn't bother to ask, was Adrielle Ward. To those who knew her, she was a ghost of the highest echelons of command. To those who didn't, she seemed like a quiet shadow slipping through hallways with no discernible purpose. The colonel was the latter, and his misjudgment was about to grow sharper. He tried to pass her again, this time brushing her shoulder without apology. The force of it nearly made the folder slip from her fingers. She steadied it, her expression unchanged. "You new here?" he asked, not out of interest but as a prelude to another put down. "Word of advice. Don't stand around like furniture. It's not a good look." The air tightened. A few soldiers paused mid-step, eyes darting between them. No one spoke. No one intervened. The unwritten laws of hierarchy held them in silent binds. Colonel Alastair Rourke prided himself on reading people at a glance. And yet, somehow, he read her as nothing. An administrative nothing taking up his space and his time. If arrogance had weight, the hallway would have bent under it. Still Adrielle remained silent. And in that silence was something strange, an unshakable patience. Like someone watching a child throw pebbles into the ocean and believing the waves would take care of the rest. Years earlier, Adrielle Ward had worn a different uniform, one dusted with sand, darkened with sweat, and torn by more than one explosion. The deserts of Al-Qatar had shaped her, carving her into a leader through fire rather than ambition. She still remembered the suffocating heat radiating off the armored vehicles, the metallic tang of gun oil mixing with the dry taste of fear, the deep thud of distant shelling echoing across the valley. She remembered the night when the stars vanished behind smoke, and she had to decide, in less than 10 seconds, whether to divert an entire battalion to rescue 50 trapped soldiers pinned down by an ambush. Command had warned her the risk was too great. Casualty projections nearly guaranteed disaster. But she listened past the numbers. Listened instead to the ragged breaths of the frightened lieutenant on the radio. The desperation in the background curses, the sharp fear of the wounded calling for help. She gave the order anyway. And it saved them. All 50 came home. But the cost stayed with her, a scar beneath her ribs from shrapnel, the ghost of a medic who didn't survive the extraction, and the weight of responsibility that never left her shoulders. Her promotions came quietly, often handed to her with solemn respect rather than loud applause. She never sought attention. She never demanded recognition. She carried her rank the way she carried her scars, silently, with a dignity that made noise unnecessary. And now, standing in a stateside hallway far from the brutal heat of battlefields, she found herself being mocked by a man who had no idea he was speaking down to someone who once controlled decisions that steered the course of entire operations. But she let him speak, because silence, in her experience, revealed people far more than confrontation ever did. The corridor had become a stage. Soldiers who usually rushed with purpose now slowed, sensing a tension that made them uneasy. Private Walsh watched from near the water cooler, his throat tightening with each jab the colonel threw. Sergeant Lillian Chen, who had seen Adriel's name once on a classified briefing, stared in horrified recognition but didn't dare intervene. A junior officer froze with a stack of reports in hand, knowing exactly who Adriel was but too stunned to speak. The moral conflict spread through the onlookers like a silent storm. Should they defend her? Should they warn the colonel? Should they keep their heads down and hope the moment passed? Everyone knew the cost of correcting someone high in rank. No one wanted to be crushed under the weight of a colonel's wounded pride. And so silence reigned, a painful, complicit silence that made Adriel's calm all the more striking. There was no anger in her, no humiliation, just a quiet sadness that felt heavier than fury. If Rourke had looked closely, really looked, he might have noticed the faint lines of exhaustion around her eyes, the subtle tension in her shoulders that suggested decades of carrying burdens he could never imagine. But arrogance blinds even the sharpest eyes. "I swear," Rourke muttered loudly enough for others to hear, "standards for new staff get worse every year. What division are you even with? Logistics. Paperwork. Something soft, I assume. Paperwork." The word lodged in several throats at once. Adriel Ward, who had directed rescue missions under direct enemy fire, who had personally negotiated ceasefires between clashing units, who held one of the highest ranks in the entire military, was being reduced to paperwork by a man who didn't bother to read the insignia hidden beneath the fold of her jacket. Adriel gently shifted her folder, and for the briefest instant the edge of her rank insignia glinted in the light. Captain Rowe, standing several paces away, saw it. His eyes widened. His breath hitched. He nearly dropped his coffee. But before he could speak, Rourke leaned in, lowering his voice with a smug edge. "A bit of advice. If you want to survive here, don't look arrogant. You're lucky I'm patient." Adriel tilted her head slightly, a subtle movement, almost imperceptible. Yet within it was a universe of restraint. And then she finally spoke, her voice soft, but carrying the weight of quiet authority. "Colonel Rourke," she said gently, "are you always this quick to judge?" Her tone was not confrontational, not angry, not even defensive. It was disappointed, and that, more than anything, unsettled the room. Her words carried a strange gravity, a gravity born from real power, not the loud, rigid kind that demands attention, but the quiet, unyielding kind that others feel in their bones. Rourke scoffed. "I judge what's in front of me." She studied him, her expression unreadable. "That explains much." Gasps fluttered through the hall. Rookie's face darkened. "You." But before he could unleash another insult, a shadow moved at the far end of the corridor. General Harlow, the highest authority on base. His eyes found Adriel instantly. And for the first time that morning, someone smiled. Not with politeness, not with the stiff formality often shown to high-ranking officers, but with deep, genuine respect. "Mom," the general said warmly. The hallway froze. "Mom." Not miss, not lieutenant, not captain. "Mom," reserved only for ranks far above colonel. Rourke stood like a statue, slowly realizing it had been carved wrong. General Harlow stopped beside her and bowed his head ever so slightly. "Welcome, General Ward," he said. The words ignited the hallway like lightning. General, the highest rank present, a rank that outranked Rourke by a gulf so wide it felt almost cruel. Rourke paled, his mouth opening and closing silently. His arrogance melted into horror, then disbelief, then something close to fear. Adriel Ward, quiet, composed, seemingly unimportant, was a general. Not just any general, one of the generals. The kind whose decisions appeared in history books. The kind whose guidance shaped entire military doctrines. The kind whose presence could reorder a command structure with a single signature. And the colonel had bullied her openly. In front of half the building, General Harlow looked at Rourke slowly, as if studying a disappointing report. "I trust you greeted General Ward properly," he said. Rourke's throat worked. I wasn't aware." "That," Harlow replied, "appears to be the problem." Adrielle did not gloat. She simply watched Rourke with a calm, almost sympathetic sadness. "Respect is not something you give based on rank," she said softly. "It is something you give because you recognize the humanity in the person standing before you." Her words struck deeper than any formal reprimand ever could. A few soldiers bowed their heads. Some felt their eyes sting. Colonel Rourke felt the hallway tilt beneath him. Adrielle continued, her tone still gentle. "One day, Colonel, you may find yourself needing kindness from someone you underestimated. I hope, for your sake, that they offer it to you." It became one of the most repeated quotes across the base. Respect is given not to the rank, but to the human being. Kindness is never wasted, even on those who underestimate you. General Harlow turned to Adrielle. "Your conference room is prepared, ma'am." Rourke swallowed hard. I deeply apologize. I didn't." Adrielle lifted a hand gently, stopping him without force. "I accept your apology, Colonel, but learn from it." The quiet authority in her voice made several onlookers straighten unconsciously. As Adrielle walked down the hallway beside General Harlow, something extraordinary happened. Every soldier she passed stood tall, not out of obligation, but out of genuine respect. Some pressed their hands over their hearts. Others bowed their heads in silent acknowledgement. A few, especially those who knew her service record, felt tears prick their eyes. Rourke remained behind, frozen, forced to witness the profound respect given to the woman he had mocked only minutes earlier. The hallway, once filled with tension, was now a corridor of reverence. Adrielle paused once and looked back, her eyes settling briefly on the young soldiers who had been too afraid to speak earlier. She offered them the smallest smile, gentle, approving, forgiving. It was a moment they would remember for the rest of their lives. Because in that hallway, everyone saw the difference between loud authority and true leadership. Some stories linger not because of explosions or battles, but because of the quiet moments that reveal who we truly are. Adrielle Ward's strength wasn't in her stars or stripes. It was in her silence, her patience, her dignity, the kind forged in places no one else wanted to stand. And that day, a colonel, and everyone watching, learned a lesson that would reshape how they treated every person they met in uniform or out of it. Silent strength is often the greatest strength of all. If this story moved you, tell me where you're watching from, and share your thoughts below. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories honoring those whose courage speaks loudest in silence.